Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join with the Prime Minister in sending our sympathies and our solidarity to the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. The attack was disgusting, depraved and appalling, and I'm sure every single member of this House would completely and unreservedly condemn it for what it is. I will also be joining the Prime Minister to commemorate Armistice Day and remember all those that lost their lives in the First World War and indeed all the other wars since. Mr. Speaker, if I were a prison governor, a local authority chief executive or a head teacher, I would struggle to find much to celebrate in the budget. I would be preparing for more difficult years ahead. Does the Prime Minister think that analysis is wrong?
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman that actually if you look at what we set out in the budget, we set out more money for schools, we set out more money for prisons, we set out more money for prisons. What we have set out in the budget is that austerity is indeed ending. And what is? And what does that mean? Ending austerity is about continuing to bring debt down and put more into our public services, and we'll set out our further details in the spending review. But ending austerity isn't just about putting more into public services. It's about putting more money into people's pockets, as my right honourable friend has just made clear. What we're doing in this budget is giving the NHS the biggest cash boost in its history. The right honourable gentleman used to ask me what taxes will go up to fund the rise in funding for the NHS. The answer on Monday, it's fully funded without putting up taxes.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Just for the record, the words that I quoted were from the Institute of Fiscal Studies. Non-protected departments face a real terms cut of £4.1 billion. The Prime Minister promised austerity was over. The reality is it was a broken promise budget, and she knows it. With violent crime rising, police numbers slashed and conviction rates down, why did the government fail to find a single penny for neighbourhood policing in the budget?
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman, first of all, we did put extra money into CT policing in the budget. That was on top of the £460 million that has been made extra, that's been made available for policing in this year. That is in sharp contrast to what Labour was saying at the 2015 election when they said the police should take 10% cuts in their budget.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, this is just another example of the contempt in which the government holds police officers. Who said that? Not me, the Police Federation. No wonder the Police Federation and police chiefs are taking the government to court over their pay. Mr. Speaker, with school funding cut by 8% per pupil, does the Prime Minister and her Chancellor think the little extras are enough to end austerity in our schools?
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman, what we actually see happening, as I said earlier, is more money announced in the budget for schools. That's on top of the £1.4 billion, on top of the £1.4 billion extra that's already been announced for schools this year, and there'll be a further £1.2 billion going into schools next year. And actually he's wrong, because overall per pupil funding is being protected in real terms by this government. What do we see in the budget? We're ending austerity, we're bringing debt down, we're putting more money into our public services. We're taking the country forward. What would he do? His policy would mean borrowing more, taxing more and wasting more, and taking us back to square one.
Jeremy Corbyn.
Many schools, including mine, have had to resort to asking students and their parents for funds. Not me, Sasha, a parent worried about the future of her school, because this broken promise budget means that head teachers will still be writing begging letters to parents. And can the Prime Minister explain why she chose not to end the benefit freeze for 10 million households, but instead brought forward a tax cut for higher earners?
Can I say, actually, as the right honourable gentleman knows, we have put extra money into universal credit in the budget. What we see importantly is universal credit being a welfare reform that ensures that people are encouraged to get into the workplace, and when they are there, they earn more. But I'm interested that the right honourable gentleman chose to raise the question of tax cuts. On Monday, he said that cutting taxes for 32 million people was frittering money away on ideological tax cuts. Yesterday, the Shadow Chancellor said Labour would support the tax cuts. On Monday, the right honourable gentleman, the Leader of the Opposition, talked about tax cuts for the rich. Yesterday, his Shadow Chancellor said what we've always known, that the tax cuts were for middle earners, head teachers and people like that. So when the right honourable gentleman stands up, perhaps he can tell the House whether he will back the tax cuts and vote for the budget.
Are you done yet? Mr. Speaker, the...
Order. It doesn't matter. I've got all the time in the world. It will take as long as it takes. The right honourable gentleman will address a House that has the manners to listen, and the same goes when the Prime Minister is speaking. There will be a decent display of respect, and we will go on for as long as necessary, as the public would expect, to ensure that that's the way we operate. That is all there is to it. Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The benefit freeze takes 1.5... If you'll wait a moment, I'll explain what my question...
Order, Mr. Hands. Calm yourself, young man. You're getting a little overexcited. I know you've already asked a question. You blurted it out to the best of your ability, and we're most indebted to you. But now is the time to keep quiet. Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, the benefit freeze takes $1.5 billion from 10 million low and middle income households. A low-income couple with children will be £200 worse off. For them, there is no end to austerity. Labour would have ended the benefit freeze, and as she well knows, Labour policy is to raise taxes for the top 5% and for the biggest corporations in the country. That would be a fair way of dealing with financial issues facing this country. And can the Prime Minister confirm? Will she kindly confirm there is still another $5 billion of cuts to social security to come in this Parliament, if it lasts till 2022, hitting the incomes of those with the least? Will she confirm that? Yes or no?
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman that, of course, what he fails to mention from the budget is that as a result of the changes we've made on universal credit, 2.4 million people will benefit by £630 a year. And when he talks about helping those who are on low incomes, yes, we're helping people who are on low incomes. We're saving people money by freezing fuel duty. That's been opposed by the Labour Party. We're letting people keep more of the money they earn by cutting income tax. That's been opposed by the Labour Party. The right honourable gentleman keeps claiming that he's backing working people. But I say to him again, if he wants to put more money into people's pockets, if he wants to take care of working people, he should vote for the Conservative budget on Thursday.
I'm really not very clear whether that was a yes or a no, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister once claimed to be concerned about burning injustices. Well, that concern's fizzled out well, hasn't it? This was, Mr. Speaker, a broken promise budget The Prime Minister pledged to end austerity at her party conference, and the Chancellor failed to deliver it in this House. The cuts continue. Those on lower incomes will be worse off as a result of this budget. Austerity has failed and needs to end now. But, Mr. Speaker, it's very clear. Only Labour can be trusted to end austerity and end the cuts to those on lowest incomes and invest in our country again. So now we know councils, schools, police, prisons.
I think order. Members can shout as long and as loudly as they like. Order. And if they feel that they want to indulge themselves doing that, so be it. The right honourable gentleman's question will be heard. Well, yes, when it comes, it will be heard in full. So don't waste your breath and damage your voices. Jeremy Corbyn.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure some of the members opposite won't have heard what I was saying at the end, so I'll repeat it for their benefit. So now we know councils, schools, police, prisons, public sector workers and those reliant on social security will face years of austerity. Will she apologise for her broken promise that she was going to end austerity, because she has failed to do that?
First of all, the right honourable gentleman talked about my commitment to tackling burning injustices. Yes. Oh, yes, they say from the front bench opposite. Indeed. Was it Labour that introduced the Modern Slavery Act? No, it was me. Was it Labour that made sure that people in mental health crisis were not being taken to police cells as a place of safety? No, it was me. Was it the Labour Party? Was it the Labour Party that introduced the race disparity audit, so for the first time we can see what's happening to people from across our communities in this country? No, it was me and this government. And I'll tell him what else this government has done. I'll tell him what else this government has done. By taking a balanced approach to the economy, careful financial management, what do we see? Borrowing down, unemployment down, income tax down. Oh, up, they say. Well, I'll tell them. Oh, I'll tell them what's gone up. Support for...
Order! I said that the right honourable gentleman must be heard. The reply from the Prime Minister must be heard. The Prime Minister.
The Labour benches want to know what's gone up. I'll tell them what's gone up. Support. As long as it takes, I'm going to tell you. Support for public services up. Growth up. Wages up. Debt is falling. Austerity is ending. Under the Conservatives, the hard work of the British people is paying off.